everyone, and welcome back to the BodiBlossom Podcast with me, Kirsty Davies, and I am so excited to have with us today our wonderful guest, Pollie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, for listeners who may not know you yet, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became known as the speaker's storyteller?
Well, it goes way back to 2005 when I was overcoming anxiety that had me trapped in my own home. Couldn't even go out into my own back garden to put the washing out. The anxiety was just awful. I couldn't breathe. You know, felt like I was really gonna pass out or something, just to go out in my own back garden. And I was lucky enough to have friends who weren't going to leave me in that position, and they dragged me out and took me places and stuff. And I was out at a quite dingy little pub in Birmingham where I grew up, and I saw a storyteller first time, and she was amazing. She looked absolutely stunning. Her outfit was beautiful, but when she started to speak, the room just hushed. And everybody went quiet. Even the bartender stopped clinking glasses and serving people. Nobody asked for a drink or anything. And she just took everybody away to a completely different experience, really. And I saw her 3 times after that. It was amazing. I finally picked up the courage to say, well, could I do something like this? Because I just loved the whole idea of it. And she gave me some hints, tips, sent me on my way and said, yeah, anybody can do it. So I booked myself onto a training day on my birthday, actually. It was a birthday treat. I absolutely loved it and started telling stories. The first time I told a story was to a group of people that were friends, and they loved it. And this one gent asked me to redo it at an open mic. And that was when I reclaimed my anxiety, because the moment I stepped on that street, because everybody else there was singing or, you know, telling poetry or jokes or the standard things you'd normally see. And I was there and I was going to tell a story. So the anxiety was just almost crippling. My heart was going, my hands were sweaty. I just wanted to run and hide and not come back ever again. But I stepped onto the stage, and it was that moment I realised I could reclaim that anxiety and repurpose it for something a bit more positive. And it was such a brilliant experience. The room quieted and people stopped and they turned and they listened where they'd been chatting to each other before, because I suppose I was something new and storytelling hadn't been heard much. But they loved the story that I told, and I was invited back the following month and again and again. And then I did Arts Fest, which was a massive free festival in Birmingham, and did BBC Open Space a couple of times. And by that time, the gentleman that had invited me in to tell the podcast, to tell the story on stage at the open mic, he's now my husband, actually. He's my biggest fan. He's my biggest fan, biggest supporter, and he's pushing me every single way. And we moved down here in 2008 when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I still told the odd story here and there, but it sort of took a bit of a back seat because we left my family and everything back up there, so I couldn't get out and about as much as I could when I was there. But I still told stories to my kids. I used them as a tool to educate and entertain and guide them through their school life, so to help them with their problems. And it was in 2019 I thought, actually, it's time I got back out there, started storytelling. But this time I want to tell my stories, because I always thought that my stories weren't worth anything. Nobody was interested in my stories. But the more I spoke about my stories and my journey, the more people said, thank you for sharing, because I don't feel so alone. And I understood how stories work, because I'd studied storytelling, done a bit of studying with why we tell stories, how it works, how it affects us, and all of these different sort of things. So I knew the psychology behind storytelling, and I wanted to do that. Then COVID hit. Obviously, we couldn't get out and do things, so I was desperately looking for a way to carry on doing it, and found narrative therapy, which I hadn't realised I'd actually been doing myself anyway, to try and build myself up and change my life. But it goes even deeper and taught me loads of new things. And storytelling in business. So I became fascinated and took a really deep dive in that and wanted to do something around that, help people get their voices heard, because I want more stories out in the world. And I thought, well, a really easy way to do it is to get people that are already out there talking to start sharing more stories, but not just share the stories, but to share the right stories in the right way to make the right impacts. So that's how I became known as the speaker storyteller, because I started speaking and teaching speakers how to use their storytelling skills and teach them storytelling skills.
It's so interesting. I remember when I first met you, and I was like, I think when you hear like a storyteller, you automatically think like, oh, like kids' stories or writing, an author or something like that, don't you? But there's so much more to it, right?
There is so much more to it. We've been telling stories for 40,000 years. Since we started FIRE, stories are there to bridge the gap between the known and the unknown, really, because as a human species, we don't like to not know something. We like to know. So when we took the time to sit and observe around us rather than just trying to survive, we started to notice the stars. Where does the sun go? Where does the moon go? And all of these questions came up. So that's when stories came into fore, because we told stories about where these things went to stop the fear of where these things went. So we then knew where they went. And that's how religions and myths and legends and all of these fables came about, was because people didn't know. So and stories perpetuate more in the not knowing, if you don't know something. But that's also where stories can help you learn to know something. They're so important. And we talk to ourselves in stories, we talk to each other in stories, we learn through story, we teach through story, and it's just such a vital part of who we are as a species. But it's so understood, it's so misunderstood, and you do just think of it as something for kids. But when I first started storytelling, I would storytell for adults. I've got some really risky stories in my repertoire. And one of my favourite stories I had that I used to tell was about a woman who had two. She had two, but she didn't really. It was very clever, and I love it because I stand there at the end and have a fake orgasm on stage. Which
oh my God,
is so much fun.
That is so fun.
I love it. It's great.
Wow, that's incredible. Like, I need to hear these stories now, and I think everyone listening wants to hear these stories. But going back to, you mentioned obviously storytelling, like the storytelling we do to ourselves. Can we delve a bit more into that? Because I think this will help so many of our listeners understand, like, you know, what's going on in their brains and the stories they are telling themselves. We tell ourselves stories all the time, and we've been telling ourselves stories since we were tiny little toddlers. You know, once we could understand a bit more about the world around us, that's when we started telling stories. So some of our stories that we tell ourselves that are ingrained in our personality are way back from then, when we were tiny and we didn't understand what was going on, so we'd made up a story. So a parent could be talking on the phone and we've got something really important that we want to tell them, and they tell us to, you know, not now, I'm on the phone, and we sort of, well, why are they acting differently? Why is this? So you make up the story of what I've got to show you isn't interesting, or just that phone call's more important, so the person or the people are more important. So you start making these stories, and they start to firm and get thicker and bigger and stronger as you get older, and they start to shore up. You notice all these times your parents might do it again and again because they're working, or if you don't explain to the child why that's happened, they won't understand, so they'll make up the story. So then this gets more and more. So every time something like that happens, it builds that story and builds it thicker. For instance, when I first started learning to drive, I was driving the car, and the partner I had at the time, he hated it when I drove because he said I drove too close to the curb, I was awful, I did this, I did that. He always picked up, and he'd always tell everybody how bad a driver I was. So that was the story I picked up about driving. So I stopped because I was a bad driver, so I stopped driving. And it was
through the narrative therapy that I taught myself that actually I wasn't such a bad driver.
Yeah.
What it was every time I went out and drove and did something wrong, something little, stalled the car or pulled out a bit too soon or took too long on a roundabout, I'd remember that my reticular activation system, the RAS, would click in and go, oh yeah, you've done that wrong again, you've done that wrong again, you've done that wrong again, you're absolutely crap, you're useless, you're rubbish, you get off the road because you're going to kill someone, sort of thing. But then I thought, no, I need to, when I moved down here, not so many buses.
No,
it's a bit more difficult to get around. So I had to start learning to drive, driving again. But this time I picked out the positive things that I was doing. And so it was sort of like, yeah, I've done that well, I've done this well, I've stopped at this, just the little things. I've stopped at this, these lights, I've slowed down properly, I've given way, I've not given into a bit of road rage where that bloke cut me up, that sort of thing. I've calmed myself down, because the story is I don't know what's going on in his life or their life. If they've cut me up, they could be rushing to hospital to say goodbye to a loved one. I don't know, so I'm not going to get angry about it. That's their story, this is my story, and I'm taking ownership. Now I drive all over the country. I drive everywhere. And it's just from changing that story and also changing my perspective, because I realised once I started driving and I got in with my husband and I sat in the car and I thought, well, he's a bit close to the curb because we're so used to being in that one seat.
Exactly.
So it's all about perspective and understanding as well.
That's
so it's
interesting. I find that so interesting, especially, I guess, for a lot of people who, I think I definitely talk about reframing, like in my coaching sessions, I'm like, right, okay, we're going to reframe these thoughts. That is exactly what you're saying. It's storytelling, isn't it? And I guess I had never even looked at it like that actually it's coming from this story from the past, and the power of that reframing and that, like, creating a new story, and the fact that you can literally create a new story, right? Now,
this very instant. I mean, I finally got my eyebrow pierced at 51.
I love it.
Because I've been telling myself a story all my life that I can't get my eyebrow pierced. My mum would hate it. And then it was like, I'm getting too old now to have my eyebrow pierced. All of these stories. And I thought, sod it, what does it matter? Why do I care what other people think of who I am? The only people that are important are my family and friends who love and support me. The stranger down the street who looks at me weird because I've got blue hair and an eyebrow piercing, what they think of it doesn't matter. It's not important, which is one of the things that stops us speaking out an awful lot, is because we're fearful of what other people think. But that in itself goes back to when we were in very tight-knit communities. Because if you spoke out and you upset people and said the wrong things, you could get ostracised, you could get kicked out, and it was a death sentence back then. There was no way you could survive on your own. So it's a survival instinct.
Wow, so it's like ingrained in us then, isn't it? Like over time to not want to speak out, not want to be different. That's so interesting, isn't it, to look at it in that way? Like, that's so powerful.
That's power. That is a really powerful bit of information that I've learned that I like to pass on, because it's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. And knowing when you're having those thoughts of like, I'm worried about what other people think, just having that like knowing in your brain that this was ingrained in us from years of when at a time we used to survive, and how lucky are we that we're not in that time anymore, and actually I can be whoever I want to be. Like, that is amazing.
It is. It's fascinating. But being women as well, we've also got generational trauma almost. I hate to say generational trauma because trauma gets used for so many things. But we've got generational conditioning as well, where we've been, in recent history, only a couple of 100 years, we've been the quiet one. We've had to support our husbands, agree with our husbands, not have our own voice. We're supposed to have been the nice quiet woman in the kitchen. And it's only, in living history almost, where we've started to become more level with the men in our society. And patriarchy damages them too, because there's a lot of men that suffer from toxic masculinity and things like that. Men are not allowed to cry. It's affected their mental health as well. But as women, we've got that extra we're the weaker sex, the fairer sex, the good, be quiet and be seen and not heard, look pretty and be quiet. And it's only, something that shocked me recently was, I was watching, it was a Call the Midwife actually, I was watching that, and a woman went to report a rape in her marriage. Yeah. And the police went, well, you're married, there's nothing we can do about it. Wow. And I looked it up and I thought, why are they doing that? 1985 or something, it was 1980s that it actually became illegal to rape a woman in marriage.
Wow, so before then?
So before then, it was, because I grew up with people saying things like, lie back, think of England and stuff like that. So in a relationship, you couldn't be raped if you were married to somebody.
I had no idea.
No, and that's recent. That's in my lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
And in 1970s, it was when we were able to actually get a mortgage on our own.
Yeah.
So it's still very recent. Yeah. So the echoes of those stories are still
here living that.
And those echoes are still being passed on. So it's changing familial stories as well, the stories that are passed on through your family, and changing all of those sort of stories as well, and recognising them, because a lot of the time we don't recognise them because it's what we grew up with. And it's just bringing more awareness. It's like menopause. If we hadn't had all these people sharing their stories and their experiences about menopause, all of these women sharing those stories, we wouldn't have the movement behind it that we've got now. True. And with autism and ADHD, I wouldn't have realised that I wasn't broken. I was just wired differently, because I've spent all my life thinking I was broken, that I was crap at doing everything that everybody else seemed able to do. But because of all these people sharing their stories and sharing their experiences, I was able to sort of support my daughter, because she's autistic, support my son and support myself. In knowing what I am, all through the storytelling of other people. So it's just more important that we get more stories out into the world.
Definitely, absolutely, get people heard for sure. So say for instance someone is listening and they're like, I'm literally living this, I'm living in this trap, and I don't know where to begin. What advice would you give someone to this is your first step to take to rewrite your story?
The first step is to know where you want to go.
Yeah.
You need to know where you go, where you want to be, and it doesn't have to be 5 years in the future. It doesn't have to be 10 years or a year. It could be a week. Where do I want to be in a week's time? And then you write yourself a story of what you did to get there. So it is very much sort of reframing. So if I want to lose £2 by this time next week, say, what do I need to do to be that person in 2 weeks? Well, I need to stop eating all the chocolate and drinking all the wine, and that will help. So I write the story saying, I'm so glad I didn't have that bottle of wine this week. I'm so glad I didn't eat that chocolate this week, because I've actually lost £3, not just the £2 I was aiming for. I'm so glad I did that. And then you tell yourself that story over and over and over and over again. Especially just as you're settling down to sleep, just as you're drifting off, that's when you're most in contact with your subconscious.
Okay.
And if you tell yourself a story about who you are, who you want to be, your subconscious has got no sense of time.
Yeah.
So your subconscious will go, this is who I am now, this is who I am. But I'm doing these things that aren't congruent with who I am. So I'm going to change that and become this person. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to take those steps.
Yeah.
Because your subconscious is going, no, you don't want to eat that chocolate.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be a thinner, fitter person next week or whatever. So then you can just do it in smaller steps. I've done one I've done myself a little vision board and a story to go with the vision board, saying I'm so glad that I've concentrated on public speaking this year and doing my podcast this year, because it's really opened up these doors and stuff like that. And so far it has started because I'm focused.
I love that, and I love a vision board.
I love a vision board.
And I love the fact that you can create this vision board and then create the story with it. Like, that's what's powerful, right? Is that you can go, do you know, I don't really know where to start, so let's just get a pen and paper and just start writing down, you know, drawing, writing words, like where you want to see yourself, what you want to see for your life. And the fact you can then create your story from there. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't go to America, you wouldn't go to you probably wouldn't go to America anyway at the moment, but like you wouldn't go to Scotland or Edinburgh without planning the route. Yeah. Because it would take you forever.
Absolutely.
You probably wouldn't even get out of East Sussex in a week if you didn't plan the route first. Yeah. But you know where you're going because you're going to Edinburgh, and then you sort of work your way backwards. That's how I do it. Yeah. Because it's sort of like,
that's where I want to go.
That's where I want to go, and then you work your way backwards. It's how I do. You know, the maps, not the maps, the mazes that you have in colouring books and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always go from the middle out.
I love this. So do I. I'm one of those people, like,
So you work it where you want to go, and then you work your way backwards because you've got to figure out where you've got to go to.
Yeah, and so that way you're giving like mini goals as well, aren't you? Like, and you've got steps. Instead of being like, that's too far away. Like, I know for me, I'm a big, like, I have big goals and dreams for myself, but sometimes I look at it and I'm like, well, you're never going to achieve that. Yeah. But it's because it feels too big at the time. So I know as soon as I break it down and say like, right, well, let's just start off with getting to there, then I'm like, I can get to there. Like, and it's writing that story, like you say, of being like, and doing those steps to that bigger vision.
Yeah. And it makes people more aware of the steps that are needed to take if you share the stories. Yeah. I mean, I've been to loads of motivational speakers. Tony Robbins, I love Tony Robbins. I've done some training with him. Wow. During COVID, actually, I was up there at 2:00 in the morning, dancing around the kitchen while everybody else was fast asleep.
I love that.
But I love Tony Robbins and all of these really motivational speakers. But I feel that you come out of it and you're fired up and you think, I can do it, they can do it, I can do it. And then life comes along and hits you in the face.
Exactly.
You've got to get the kids ready for school, you've got to cook dinner, there's so much going on. Yeah. And the motivation wanes. Yeah. But the smaller stories, because not everybody wants a £1 million company or wants to climb Mount Everest or run a marathon. Exactly. Some people just want to get out of bed and clean their teeth. Yeah. Some people just want to get through the month or have enough to go on holiday. Yeah. These are small wins, these are small successes. So the more people share stories about the small successes on the journey to the big successes, the more people are going to be motivated and inspired. They're going to be more inspired by these people. And I think inspiration gives you motivation.
Absolutely.
Rather than just losing it, because you think, well, actually, she's done this in spite of that, but she just did it in small steps. And people's success is, it's personal to them as well. When I was growing up, all I wanted to be successful, my version of success as a child was to have a husband, because we all were supposed to have husbands back then. This is like the 80s. Have a husband who loved me, a job I adored, a couple of kids, a house and a washing machine. Now, the washing machine was important before the children, because my mum had one of these twin tubs that she had to drag out, bring into the middle of the kitchen, fill up, wash stuff, then move it all over into the dryer bit and then dry the stuff. And it was just like, I wasn't having kids until I had a proper washing machine.
That is brilliant.
So having a washing machine, to me as a small child, was a sign of success. Yeah. And I've got all of those things. Yeah. So for that, I'm successful. Yeah. And I'm happy. You know, I've got enough money to pay the bills. We go out, we go on holiday now and again. So I've reached my level of success that I was happy with. And I'm happy where I am, but it's sort of like, I want to share my journey with other people to know that they can be happy and reach the level of success that they want.
Absolutely. And I guess celebrating the wins as well, isn't it? Because, and I think it really hit me there where you said what you thought was success, success was, and you've reached that. And I guess if I actually look at my life and what, back at, even say probably like 10 years ago, if I looked at my life now, I would have been like, I've way outdone what I ever wanted to do. And I think sometimes it is important, isn't it, that we celebrate those small wins and we do take time to go, do you know what, these little things that we're doing along the way to life's a journey, right? There's no end goal as such. We keep going, and I guess it is just reminding people that, including myself, to celebrate those small wins. You know,
it's important to celebrate those small. Because when I was, I've lived with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and all of these caused by the undiagnosed autism and ADHD. I think I'm burnt out in my early 30s. Yeah. And there's been times where I've not been able to get out of bed and do anything really all day, and I've just lain there at the end of the day, beating myself up about all the things that I should have done. I should have done this, I should have done that. But when I changed it to, I managed to get up and make myself a cup of tea today. I think tomorrow I'll get up and I'll watch a bit of telly. And it was sort of like changing those. So I wasn't beating myself up, I was celebrating myself and celebrating everything that I'd done. And it's just reframing how you think. And unfortunately today with social media being so, this is what success is, this is, so many of our young people are there going, I can't achieve that, I can't do that.
No, we compare, and I think that's the worst thing, we compare, and I'm terrible for it, and I'm still working on it, and I will continue working it probably for the rest of my life. You know, like it's in our faces all the time, but I do personally always make sure I write down every week my successes, small ones, you know, like the kid, you know, got the kids to school on time every day this week.
Oh, that is a win.
Great. Good, well done, mum job. I think it is so important to do, especially when it comes to the comparing ourselves to other people.
The only people you should compare yourself is to you in the past. It's like, where have I come from now? It's like, it's so important.
And life's a journey, right? And it comes in roller coasters, and it's reminding ourselves of that, you know, just because at times, you know, things feel really hard, it's knowing that your story is going to get better, and can, you know, like you will get out of the hard times as well that people are going through.
And it's understanding that other people have their own stories. And it's different to your stories. Everybody sees the same thing differently. Because they're seeing it through their own lens of experiences and their own personalities and things like that. So if somebody will see something, even a colour orange, to me that colour orange is different to how you see the colour orange and what it represents to you. So it's just all of those things, and it's acknowledging other people's stories. And just saying, well, that's their story, this is my story. I'm the one that's in control of my story, and I'm in control of how they affect my story.
So I guess that comes to like the opinions I guess people like to give on things, and it is part and parcel of life, and you will get that. But like you say, I think that's really powerful, bringing it back to yourself and knowing actually that I have my own story and that is their story. And I think that will help a lot of people like come away from overthinking those opinions of other people, you know, just to bring it back and go, actually, I'm just going to bring this back to my story, that they will think differently, like we all think differently, like you say. I think that's a really cool thing to take away, of like when people are giving opinions that you might not necessarily agree with and you might feel like are hurting you as a person, to just bring it back to you.
We often have opinions of other people, and we want to help, but sometimes it's hurtful when you say it. But when you learn to sort of think, well, actually everybody's entitled to their opinion, but it might not be right for that moment, it might not be right for that person. I've had RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I remember one time just bursting into tears in the class because the schedule that my mum and dad wanted for parents' evening, one of the teachers couldn't fit it in, and I felt like I'd completely ruined everything. It was the worst thing. And so especially people that have rejection sensitivity, it's really crucial that they learn that things are coming from other people's perspective. And it's not actually necessarily truth.
That's really powerful. Look, all this powerful stuff happening here. I think this is awesome. That is so incredible.
Thank you.
Like, so incredible. And I think people are going to take a lot away from this. Let's talk about where people can find you.
Yeah, definitely. People can find me all over social media, literally.
Yeah.
all
Love
over
that.
social media, or you can email me. I'm just in the middle of a transition to a new business where we're focusing more on the stories that people are telling themselves and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's changethescript.org. So you can email me at info@changethescript.org, or find me as Pollie Rafferty, the speaker storyteller. So I've got the speaker storyteller website and stuff at the moment. So yeah.
Oh, I love this. This is so exciting. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to go into the rest of my day like absolutely buzzing and just like hearing what people's stories they're telling.
Yeah, people have got amazing stories.
Yeah.
They're just too scared, too shy, too embarrassed to share them.
So let's challenge our listeners. Let's get them
share a story.
Share a story.
Yeah.
Like that's what you guys have got to do. You've got to share a story today and see what comes back, right?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Pollie, for coming on. I massively appreciate it. That was absolutely incredible and so good to have you on. So thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners.
Thank you.
We will see you all soon.
Bye.